Hello guys, welcome to Clinical Medicine. Topic for today's video is clinical approach to clubbing. So clubbing is a very important physical sign and I'll be discussing definition, mechanism, causes of clubbing, and at the end I'll have some case discussion. So what is clubbing? Clubbing is defined as the bulbous enlargement of the ends of the digits due to expansion of the subungual tissue. Subungual tissue is the tissue beneath the nail bed. So here is a normal finger and here is a clubbed finger. If we compare the clubbed finger with the normal finger, there is an increase in the subungual tissue, and due to this there is a bulbous expansion of the nail. Normally there is an angle of 160 degree between the nail and the nail bed. This angle is called as the Lovibond angle, and in clubbing it increases to more than 180 degrees, 180 or more than 180 degrees because of the increase in curvature at the nail bed. So we all have done this simple bedside test to look for clubbing. This is called as the Shamrod's sign. So normally when the two dorsal surfaces of the index fingers are brought together, there is a diamond shaped space that is left in between the two fingers, as we can see here. So this is normal. When this space is obliterated, clubbing is said to be present, and that is called as the Shamrod sign. Here is the image depicting the Shamrod sign. So here we can see normally there is a diamond shaped space that is there in between the two index fingers, but in clubbing this space is lost. And why do we use index finger commonly to elicit this sign? Because it is the first finger to develop clubbing. The other fingers will be involved eventually. Now there are degrees of clubbing. Grade 1 is the fluctuation of nail bed. Here we can see that there is no gross deformity in the structure of the nail. There is only increased fluctuation and mobility of the nail bed. In grade 2 there is obliteration of the Lovibond angle. As we can see here that the angle has got flattened or obliterated. In grade 3 there is parrot beak appearance or drumstick appearance. So due to gradual progressive clubbing, the ends of the fingers start to look like parrot beak. Also due to the bulbous enlargement of the finger ends, it kind of gives a drumstick appearance. So grade 3 is the parrot beak or drumstick appearance. Grade 4 is the hypertrophic osteoarthropathy. So we will discuss about this in a bit detail later, but let's remember grade 4 is the hypertrophic osteoarthropathy. What are the mechanisms by which clubbing occurs? There is neurogenic, hypoxic and platelet derived growth factor. Out of three, this is the most accepted theory that explains the occurrence of clubbing. Hypoxia is also an important mechanism by which clubbing occurs. Hypoxia is basically decrease in the oxygen content in the tissues. So in response to hypoxia, tissues produce vascular endothelial growth factor, and this factor leads to proliferation of blood vessels and expansion of blood vessels in the subungual tissue, and this leads to clubbing. Coming to platelet derived growth factor, so normally megakaryocytes, they undergo fragmentation within the pulmonary capillaries. But in some pathologies, these megakaryocytes, these large platelets, they escape the lung capillary network and they enter into the systemic circulation. So when they enter into the systemic circulation, they go to the small vessels in the fingertip and get clogged there. After getting impacted, they get activated there, and there they release platelet derived growth factor and vascular endothelial growth factor. And so this leads to proliferation and expansion of blood vessels and formation of connective tissue in the subungual part of the nail bed, and that leads to clubbing. Here mutation of the HPGD gene is shown. So this gene is responsible for producing an enzyme which is prostaglandin dehydrogenase enzyme, that is responsible for metabolizing the prostaglandin E2. So now due to lack of this enzyme, there is increase in the PGE2, prostaglandin E2 in the circulation, and that leads to increased blood flow and connective tissue changes of clubbing. So this mutation in the gene is autosomal dominant in inheritance. And so coming to causes of clubbing, there are respiratory causes, cardiovascular causes, also gastrointestinal causes of clubbing, some idiopathic and rare causes. So in respiratory, to break it down further, bronchial carcinoma and chronic suppurative lung diseases. Chronic is a very important term here because it takes 2 to 3 weeks for clubbing to develop. So any acutely infectious or hypoxic process cannot lead to clubbing. For example, an acute pneumonia, it cannot cause clubbing. The pathology has to be there for at least 2 to 3 weeks. So chronic suppurative lung diseases like bronchiectasis, lung abscess, chronic empyema, pulmonary fibrosis, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis and cystic fibrosis, these are the respiratory causes of clubbing. If we pay a little more attention here, we see that chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and tuberculosis, they have not been included in the list because they do not cause clubbing, and this is a important point. So coming to cardiovascular causes of clubbing, the most important ones here are cyanotic congenital heart disease and infective endocarditis. So cyanotic congenital heart disease, as the name suggests, there is mixing of arterial and venous blood, and this leads to hypoxia in the body, and that's how clubbing occurs. Infective endocarditis, in this condition there is formation of vegetations on the valves of heart, and these vegetations, they are composed of platelet clumps, and sometimes these platelet clumps are dislodged into the circulation and they go and get impacted in the fingertip, and that's how they can cause clubbing. Now cirrhosis. So how can cirrhosis cause clubbing? Basically, cirrhosis is associated with vasodilation of the blood vessels in the subungual tissue due to increase in the estrogen component, and also secondly, it leads to opening of arteriovenous channels in the lung. So how does this arteriovenous channel lead to clubbing? Basically, normally the blood in the arterioles, they go through the capillary, where the oxygen from the capillaries is transported to the tissues, and then the blood returns to the vein. But in AV malformations or AV arteriovenous channels, there is an abnormal communication between the arterioles and the veins. So now the oxygenated blood in the arterioles, they bypass the capillaries and directly go and enter into the veins. So the tissues do not get oxygen, and then there is a hypoxia that occurs, and this leads to clubbing. So that's how cirrhosis can cause clubbing. This complication of cirrhosis is also called as hepatopulmonary syndrome. Hepatopulmonary syndrome. So a cirrhotic patient who presents with clubbing, we can think of this complication. Inflammatory bowel disease. Inflammatory bowel disease is a chronic inflammatory condition, and in chronic inflammation there is an increase in the platelet. There occurs thrombocytosis. Now there are too many platelets in the circulation, which overcomes the capacity of the lung capillary system to break them. So many platelets, many megakaryocytes, they enter into the systemic circulation, and then they go and get clogged in the fingertip circulation, and there they cause clubbing. So inflammatory bowel disease can also lead to clubbing. Idiopathic, familial. Can clubbing be familial? Yes, clubbing can be familial. Clubbing can be genetic. Let's go back to the previous slide. Clubbing can be familial and genetic in origin. There are other rare causes of clubbing, that is thyroid acropathy, pregnancy, unilateral clubbing. So can clubbing be unilateral? Yes, in conditions like hemiplegia, and in condition like axillary artery aneurysm. So suppose there is a right axillary artery aneurysm. Aneurysm basically means a dilatation in the vessel wall. So in this pouch there are small clumps which get accumulated, and these clumps, they dislodge into the circulation, distal circulation. So suppose this is a right axillary artery, so the clumps will get dislodged into the right radial and right ulnar artery and will go into the right hand fingers and cause only right fingers of the right hand will have clubbing. So this can lead to unilateral clubbing. Can clubbing be unidigital, like only a single finger can have clubbing? Yes, in case of gout or in case of trauma, even a single finger can have clubbing and the rest of the fingers can be normal. So clubbing can be unidigital, clubbing can be unilateral. And these are some of the rarer causes of clubbing, but we have to remember the more common causes of clubbing and the important ones, which are bronchial carcinoma, chronic suppurative lung diseases like bronchiectasis, lung abscess and empyema, and pulmonary fibrosis. And important cardiovascular causes are cyanotic congenital heart disease, and infective endocarditis. So the question is, can acyanotic congenital heart disease cause clubbing and cyanosis? We shall learn about this in a bit detail in the coming slides. So let's come to some case discussion. A 60-year-old male chronic alcoholic comes with complaint of fever for 4 weeks and cough with foul smelling expectoration. On examination, clubbing is present. So cough with foul smelling expectoration, this is a red flag for lung abscess. We have learned in our clinical history taking that if a history of cough with foul smelling expectoration is present, it indicates lung abscess. Also, there is another clue here that patient is chronic alcoholic, and alcoholics are at risk of getting lung abscess. Why? Because alcoholics, they have depressed gag reflex, and because of that they keep aspirating their oral secretions into the lung. There are micro aspirations, and these aspiration, the content of this aspiration is mainly anaerobic organisms. So these anaerobic organisms lead to cavity and a foul smelling expectoration. So the answer here would be, and the presence of clubbing supports our diagnosis. So the answer would be lung abscess. And I have also attached a classical X-ray of lung abscess. Here we can see a large cavity, and inside the cavity at the bottom there is a straight line. This is the air fluid level. So the presence of air fluid level inside a cavity, this is the hallmark X-ray finding of lung abscess. And you can be asked this X-ray in your practical examination or in your NEET examination, because we know that now it is quite image based. So yeah, moving on to the next question. A 75-year-old male chronic smoker comes with complaint of cough, hemoptysis and weight loss since 3 months. On examination, clubbing is present. So here is an elderly male who is a chronic smoker. So an elderly male who is a chronic smoker, he is also at risk for getting COPD. And cough, hemoptysis and weight loss, this can also occur in TB. But there is no history of fever. So there is no history of fever, and we know that COPD and TB are not associated with clubbing, so we can rule these two common causes out. Now here is an elderly male who is also having a risk factor of chronic smoking, which is a risk factor for bronchogenic carcinoma. So this should be at the top of our differential diagnosis, and we know that bronchogenic carcinoma is associated with clubbing. The X-ray attached here, it shows a mass arising from the left hilar region with a smooth and well-defined border. So a mass in such a patient, lung mass in a 75-year-old chronic smoker is highly likely to be bronchogenic carcinoma, although it requires a pathological diagnosis to establish the diagnosis. So next question. A 45-year-old female came with complaint of shortness of breath progressively increasing since 2 years and associated with dry cough. On examination, clubbing is present, and on auscultation, fine and inspiratory Krebs are present. So this is a chronic condition, and it has been there since 2 years, associated with dry cough, and on examination, clubbing is present. On auscultation, there are fine and inspiratory Krebs. So this classical description of interstitial lung disease. So fine and inspiratory Krebs can also be present in cardiac failure, but here there is no history of orthopnea, and a 45-year-old female is less likely to develop cardiac failure. So ILD here, interstitial lung disease, is our most probable diagnosis, and this X-ray is showing increase in the prominence of interstitial markings in the bilateral lower zones. If we compare the upper zones with the lower zone, the upper zones are relatively spared, and it is particularly symmetrical involvement of the bilateral lower zones where we can see prominent interstitial marking. So this is a classical X-ray of interstitial lung disease. And also the Krebs that we find, these Krebs are also more prominently present in the bilateral basal lower zones. So this is the classical history and the classical X-ray of interstitial lung disease. So a 20-year-old male having history of shortness of breath and fatigability since 2 years presented with complaint of bluish discoloration of all the fingers and lips. History of recurrent pneumonias in the childhood is present. On examination, there is ruddy cyanosis, clubbing is present. On auscultation, systolic murmur present in the left third intercostal space. So a young male who is having complaint of shortness of breath and fatigability since 2 years has come with complaint of cyanosis. Now, also there are history of recurrent pneumonias in childhood. So recurrent pneumonias in childhood, this is a history classical of congenital heart diseases, particularly acyanotic congenital heart diseases like VSD, ASD, PDA, because here there is a left to right shunt, and so there is increase in the pulmonary blood flow that leads to increased risk of recurrent pneumonias. So on examination, ruddy cyanosis is present. So ruddy cyanosis, this signifies polycythemia. Basically, when a person is exposed to hypoxia for a long time, there is increase in the erythropoietin hormone in the blood, and this erythropoietin leads to increased production of RBCs in the body. So basically they have hemoglobin of 18 or 19 and they have ruddy cyanosis. Clubbing is present, that signifies presence of hypoxia. On auscultation, a systolic murmur is present in the left third intercostal space. What is the diagnosis? This is the classical location of VSD murmur, ventricular septal defect. So the diagnosis here is ventricular septal defect, but ventricular septal defect we know is an acyanotic congenital heart disease. So can acyanotic congenital heart disease cause clubbing and cyanosis? So this is a very important concept, and let's see how it happens. Previous question, acyanotic congenital heart diseases can cause cyanosis and clubbing later in life, probably in adulthood, by the process of Eisenmengerization, and this syndrome is called as Eisenmenger's syndrome. This concept is very important and it shall be very useful in the practical exams as well. So at birth, here is the ventricular septal defect, the defect in the septum. We know that the left ventricle pressure is higher than the right ventricular pressure, which is at the lower side. So when there is a defect and the left ventricle contracts, the blood flows, some of the blood goes into the aorta and some of the blood through the defect goes from the high pressure system, that is the left ventricle, to the low pressure system, that is the right ventricle. The pressure generated by the left ventricle and the volume is diverted towards the right ventricle and the pulmonary circulation. This oxygenated blood from the left ventricle, it goes into the pulmonary artery, goes into the lungs, gets oxygenated and comes back to the left ventricle. So at birth, there is no hypoxia or cyanosis because the deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle is going to the pulmonary circulation, going to the lungs, coming back to the left heart as oxygenated blood and going to the systemic circulation. So the systemic circulation is containing normal oxygenated blood, and that's why these defects, these congenital heart diseases, they do not present with cyanosis and clubbing at birth. But later in life, because of the chronic pressure and volume overload from the left ventricle to the right ventricle pressure starts to increase. Also, the pulmonary capillaries, they are not used to handling so much, they are not capable of handling this amount of increased blood flow. So slowly and steadily, the endothelium of the pulmonary artery, it starts to proliferate and obliterate the lumen. So now what happens, the right ventricle, it has to generate more pressure in order to pump blood into the pulmonary circulation. So at a stage in life, later stage in life, the pressure in the right ventricle becomes much more than the pressure in the left ventricle. So now when the right ventricle contracts, the blood starts to go from right ventricle to the left ventricle. which is opposite of the condition at birth. So there is a reversal of shunt. Now when this process starts to happen, the patient will start developing clubbing and cyanosis in adulthood, because now the deoxygenated blood is entering the left ventricle and is going into the aorta and into the systemic circulation. So this process is called as Eisenmengerization. So that answer. Now coming to next concept, the concept of differential clubbing. Here in this image we can see that the fingers do not have clubbing, but the toes have clubbing. Clubbing is present. So that means that only toes are hypoxic. The toes are receiving deoxygenated blood and the fingers are receiving normal oxygenated blood. But how is this possible? How can this be possible? This condition is classically associated with patent ductus arteriosus, and we shall understand in the next slide how does it happen. So patent ductus arteriosus, this is a fetal structure which was supposed to disappear after birth. This fetal structure, it connects the descending aorta. So this is the ascending aorta, this is the arch of aorta which gives its branches, the carotid, the subclavian artery which supplies our upper limb, hand and fingers, and after that is the descending aorta. So ductus arteriosus connects the descending aorta to the pulmonary artery, and at birth the pressure in the aorta is more than the pressure in the pulmonary artery. So whenever blood flows during systole in the aorta, some of the blood comes back to the pulmonary artery through this connection. It goes again back into the lungs and then through the pulmonary veins come into the left ventricle and is pumped back again. So at birth there is no hypoxia or cyanosis because the pure oxygenated blood is entering the systemic circulation and going everywhere. But later in life, just as we learned the previous concept, the pulmonary circulation is exposed to high pressure and volume from the aorta. So it starts to, the endothelium of the pulmonary artery starts to proliferate. And later in life, the pressure in the pulmonary artery increases than the aorta. So now when the blood is going through the pulmonary artery, the deoxygenated blood that is going through the pulmonary artery to the lungs, some of this deoxygenated blood, it enters the ductus arteriosus and it goes into the descending aorta. Because remember, the communication is distal to the subclavian artery. This subclavian artery is still receiving the pure oxygenated blood through the subclavian artery through the arch of aorta. The impure blood is entering from the pulmonary artery through the ductus arteriosus into the descending aorta which is supplying the lower limbs. So only lower limbs are exposed to deoxygenated blood and to hypoxia. So that's why only lower limbs develop clubbing. So this is how differential clubbing occurs, and this is classically associated with patent ductus arteriosus. Next question, a 30-year-old male having complaint of shortness of breath and palpitation for last 2 years now presented with complaint of fever, that is since 4 weeks. On examination, clubbing is present. Per abdomen, splenomegaly is present. Petechia is present on the lower limbs. On auscultation, pansystolic murmur radiating to the axilla is present at the apex. So what is the diagnosis? So the patient was having shortness of breath and palpitation. Palpitation is a cardiac symptom, so we should think on the lines of cardiac pathology. So patient was having some cardiac pathology for 2 years and has now presented with complaint of fever. Some infective process has superimposed. On examination, there is clubbing present, there is splenomegaly present, petechia present on the lower limbs, and on auscultation, pansystolic murmur radiating to the axilla is present at the apex. So this is the classical description of MR, mitral regurgitation murmur. So the patient was having mitral regurgitation. Patient was symptomatic for mitral regurgitation since 2 years, and now he has got fever. Now we know that a known complication of valvular heart disease is infective endocarditis. So the patient has developed infective endocarditis, and clubbing, splenomegaly, petechia, these are all peripheral evidences of infective endocarditis. The other peripheral evidences of infective endocarditis are osseous node, Janeway lesions, splinter hemorrhages, Roth spots. So these can also be seen in patients. So this is a case of mitral regurgitation complicated by infective endocarditis. Now this image is depicting hypertrophic osteoarthropathy. So if you remember this term, we came across this term in grade 4 clubbing, hypertrophic osteoarthropathy. So just as in response to hypoxia and PDGF, the subungual tissue starts proliferating. Similarly, the connective tissue beneath the periosteum, the subperiosteal connective tissue, in response to hypoxia, in response to vascular endothelial growth factor. Some of the tumors also produce this vascular endothelial growth factor. So whenever these growth factors are increased in the circulation, the subperiosteal connective tissue, it starts to proliferate, and it kind of lifts up the periosteum. So as we can see here, there is a double lining. The outer lining represents the lifted periosteum, and this is the connective tissue, subperiosteal connective tissue proliferation. Slowly and steadily there is osteoid formation, because vascular endothelial growth factor, it also has osteoblastic activity. So this osteoid formation leads to formation of bone in the subperiosteum, and slowly and gradually the bones are broadened. This process also occurs at the joints. So hypertrophic osteoarthropathy can be defined as painful swelling and broadening of the bones and joints. We can also see here the double lining, the outer lining, which is representing the periosteal lift. So this condition mainly affects the joints and the metacarpal, metatarsals, wrist joint, knee joint, ankle joint. It also affects the tibia, radius, ulna, like we have seen here. And this X-ray is showing the subperiosteal proliferation and expansion. So this is hypertrophic osteoarthropathy. This is also paraneoplastic syndrome. So presence of this condition should make the clinician look for bronchogenic carcinoma. So coming to the slide, pachydermoperiostosis. This is the condition that is associated with HPGD gene mutation. We learnt in the familial form of clubbing that prostaglandin dehydrogenase enzyme, the lack of this enzyme leads to increase in the PGE2, and that leads to familial form of clubbing. This is called as pachydermoperiostosis. There is a triad of pachyderma, thickening of the facial skin, and this leads to leonine kind of faces, leonine faces. This triad also consists of clubbing and hypertrophic osteoarthropathy. So this is the familial form of clubbing, and by this slide I finished the session on clubbing. So I tried to inculcate as much clinical information that I could, and if you like this video, then please like it, share it, subscribe it, and please let me know what are the other topics that I can make videos on, that you want me to make videos on. And keep learning, keep studying, keep working hard, and I'll see you in the next video. So thank you.